Hello, everyone, and welcome to Jump Up Supercast, the only podcast on the internet that wants to ask, are you okay? I'm Will, and joining me this week, Brandon.
Are you okay, Annie?
Ills.
Okay, Boomer.
And Saf.
Power wave.
Hey, there was a through line there, at least somewhat. We did it. All of them related to the thing I said. That does not happen often, so I'm very proud.
It happens all the time on the Game Club.
Wow, that's because we have more to work with.
Yeah, we're a cohesive unit on the Game Club, unlike this fucking shit.
I was about to say, look at this intro. This is the one we can advertise with, and then we just insulted our own podcast. So, here we are.
Well, it's what we do best.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We promise nothing and deliver even less. That podcast is dead, so we get to claim it now. How have you been doing this week, boys?
We're doing really
terrible.
good, man.
This is the worst week of all time.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
I mean,
Damn.
I knew it would
Strokes.
happen one day, so at least it was this week.
Way to say us tone already. Jeez.
Wow.
I mean,
why
you
not?
asked, and I answered. So
Mm-hmm. No one to blame but me.
Couldn't handle the answer.
Mm-hmm.
First we shit on our podcast, and then Ills shits on this entire week.
Listen, I'm keeping it real, bitch.
That's what you get. Straight shooter respected on both sides of the aisle. Ills.
Oh wow, what am I, John McCain now?
I mean, I haven't seen your face before. Maybe.
Possibly.
But you know what? You know who didn't play video games? John McCain. But we do, so we're going to talk about them. Actually, he did. It was weird. He talked about... don't worry about it. Anyways, let's get to it. Why not? Boys, this week we had a new character in Smash Brothers released. Right? We knew about him, Terry Bogard, but we got 45 minutes of Masahiro Sakurai sitting at a desk. I would say less unhinged than he was with Banjo, but he still went super long anyways. But this is the fourth or the fifth character pack, right? First and foremost, if you don't know who Terry Bogard is, Masahiro Sakurai has answers for you, because he spent the first 10 minutes of this video explaining, for all the Zoomers out there, what SNK was, which was useful. And then just going over the character, going over what's in the game. We'll sort of go part by part, but first and foremost, the character himself, Terry, have you guys got to play? What are your impressions?
Yeah, I got to play him. I played him for a little bit. All I did was run through his classic mode.
Mm-hmm.
But in playing as him, see, here's the thing. I was at work, so I didn't really have time to watch the 45-minute thing. I just saw the memes and everything, so I know kind of what went on.
Sure.
So, I didn't get to see his explanation of all his moves, so I went in completely blind. And I was very surprised to find out, am I pulling off B moves by doing weird A combinations?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that's what was happening.
You are correct. Much like Ryu and Ken, if you do the actual inputs from the games, then you will do the moves. It's a little weird. A couple of his moves aren't the same because of the nature of how he works. He does have one unique thing to him almost entirely, which is he's the only character in the game to have two different side specials. Traditionally in Smash, if you press left or right and B, it's the same move. Now if you press forward smash, he does Burning Knuckle, I think is the name. And then I forget with his back B is, but he does like a little somersault kick. And so that's
Crush
that's
Camp
cool.
or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Crush or something.
I don't have the list in front of me. But that is really cool. I have killed myself many times by accidentally doing it the wrong way, which is, whatever, it's fine. Moose got a lot of wins on me over that yesterday. But
That happened.
I know. I feel like it was a true disappointment. But I think it's cool that you have these characters that are clearly, I mean, we mentioned this maybe before, but beating up someone in King of Fighters is what inspired Sakurai to make Smash Brothers, right? Because he beat up a guy in front of his girlfriend in King of Fighters, and he felt so bad that he wanted to make a game that guy could win in.
Damn, he's living my life.
That's a genuine
Humble
story.
brag.
Yeah, it is very much a humble brag, but clearly he had the enthusiasm, right? Like, this is a game that preceded making Smash. He's had years, decades to be attached to it, and I think that came across well.
That's nice to know. Comes around the full circle.
It does.
He should let his friends fucking win, especially in front of their girlfriend.
He didn't. It was a stranger. He didn't even know he was there. Like, because the arcade cabinets are like facing away from each other, so you don't see who you're fighting. And he turned around, and he saw a guy like really ashamed. He was like, oh,
Sakurai, the real Chad.
Yeah, he asserted himself. But I think that's very funny. Like I said, because he has the attachment to the series, there is 20 background characters on the King of Fighters stage. I'm not going to list them all, but I think it might be worth making mention of one who is not there. You see, in case you don't know, Smash Brothers is for quote-unquote good boys and girls. And so
not for me. So I had to sell my game after I heard about this.
It's true. I respect that you respect the Sakurai's intent.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if that's true, then why is Bayonetta there?
Well, we can get to that if you want. But basically, Mai Shiranui, who is generally like she's up there. She's a top 5 most well-known SNK character if you look at like the Japanese character polls, right?
Yeah. I mean, she would have been my personal choice if I had to pick a character from that franchise.
We know why.
And it's the reason she's not in the game, which is very titillating, let's say, Mai Shiranui. And in the Japanese version, he outright said, this would increase our age rating if we put her in the game. And that can enter a whole new conversation of different regions' age ratings. But apparently in Japan, if you have any design that could potentially lead people to look under the skirt, you get T for teen immediately. So that's a neat little insight in how this stuff works. Who would have thought?
Sakurai straight up said no titty.
Yeah. And he said it's dumb. In an interview like back in the Palutena days in Smash 4, he was like, this is stupid, but I have to do it.
Yeah.
And clearly he wanted to put Mai in there, but she's not. But it's fine. There's like 20 other ones, right? There is 50 songs. In a very funny anecdote, he mentions he thought they had a list of 50 potential ones. He sent them in.
A censorship apologist, Will.
I mean, it's true. There's nothing I care about more than that. I love censoring. But but you know who did not censor? SNK, because they said use all 50 songs, it's fine. Right? It's no problem at all. Here you go.
Yeah.
And he was like, I didn't plan on this, but now SNK has Terry Bogard has more songs than almost any character besides Mario and Smash Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna say no, right? Like that's like how many? It's like going to somebody's house for Halloween and being like, hey, how many pieces can I take? And they say, yeah, take them all.
Here's the bowl.
So, oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is
very for the other kids.
Well, the other kids were Cloud in this situation, by the way. He got 2.
For Cloud. I'm still impressed that they gave fucking Terry Bogard as many moves that he possibly can learn into his moveset. Like, every single move is a special move that he knows. And they just use special inputs for like Buster Move and other stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah. And they have a neat sort of gimmick to his stage too to sort of play off that, right? He's combo focused, right? And they have walls on each side of the screen. And so normally in Smash, when there are flat stages, you just walk off the screen, you can die. Now that doesn't happen. You have to be hit at a high enough percent with enough force to break through that wall to be killed. You can get knocked up, but the ceiling's really high. But it's really cool. It's one, just the effect of when you break through the screen every time the wall is very satisfying. You do the zoom in and the slow-mo, and then you go flying.
Yes.
Isn't that exactly like Snake Stage then?
Well, no, because Snake Stage, you can destroy the walls and they're just gone. They're invisible walls on the King of Fighters stage, right? Oh. And so, like, when you hit someone, you just see, like, the impact they made and, like, how much it cracks, but then it heals back up. So, like, if you hit someone, so it doesn't, like, rack up damage over time. It's all about the momentum of one shot, basically. But it's really cool. It is frustrating at times. There was a couple of moments where I was playing as him on that stage. Someone was at, like, 130%, and I do a big special move, and they don't go through, and I'm like, what do I have to do, soccer guy? Help me out here, man. But I think it's neat when you have these things that are, like, clearly pulling, because he, as he mentioned, there were ring outs, there were wall bounces in early King of Fighters games. This is kind of a version of that. So it just continues that sort of thing with the DLC, especially of like, we're getting everything we can in the spirit of these franchises into Smash, you know?
Yeah. Every like every DLC has just been the same, just like that. Where it's like they put in as much love as they possibly can for like every single franchise, and it's really, really appreciated. Like Joker with adding in like Persona 4, 3, as well as 5, Banjo-Kazooie with that entire crazy stage where you can see his fucking little sister as well jog around the fucking stage. And all the other ones, like fucking Dragon Quest Hero with like his fucking magic command list of like 50 million different moves.
Yeah.
It's great.
And so I mean, obviously, it was very funny in the build up to this that we saw the 45-minute timer and people said there's got to be something else, right? And then they almost immediately tweeted there will be no new character announcements. So maybe see you at the Game Awards in December. Who knows when? That was where Joker got announced last year, so maybe we'll have a little bookends for the first Fighters Pass. But overall, I mean, shocker to say, the guys that are currently communicating in a room called Smash Chat like a thing in Smash Brothers. But that is of course, that is one of the things, right? That's like the big video game release. I don't know the way to describe. I guess that's what it is. But there was a couple pieces of news, right? I would say we are firmly in the period of time where they're focusing more on selling the games that are already out than announcing games, right? But we did get a new trailer for a game that is coming out in a week. Or not even on this Friday when you're hearing this, Pokemon Sword and Shield. Heyo. Sorry,
It's almost over.
Oh, you just hold strong, my man.
No, when it comes out, man, it's gonna keep going.
It's almost over. It's
boy.
almost over.
But this. Sorry, go ahead, Seth. What was that?
No, I was about to say great things are coming. That's
wow.
True.
Depending on who you ask on the internet right now, but. But we did. It's interesting. They gave us the overview trailer last week, right? And typically when they do the overview trailer, they're done with announcing things, right? And I get how they didn't want to include this stuff in like a trailer like that, because just in comparison to other trailers, right? Other trailers, here's Meowth, but he's really big, right? Here's a new enemy team. Here's these other things. In this trailer, the thumbnail is Pikachu and Gengar next to two graphs. And that is because it is focusing on quality of life stuff, right? And I think
that's kind of stuff.
Yeah. Competitive side. So, the sort of the biggest thing that they show is like natures have been a thing in Pokemon for a long time. If you don't know what they do, essentially they boost one stat and lower one stat, right? And if you're by like roughly 10%. So if you want to make a competitive Pokemon, having the right nature is a big deal. And now there are items that you can have where essentially you can just change the nature without having to worry about breeding or repeating or having to hunt for the right nature, because there's like over 20, right? Different types. And so that's a sort of just one of those little quality of life changes. There's other ones, like there's now EXP candies, which are different than the rare candies that give you different XP amounts depending on how big they are. You get those from the raid battles, which we mentioned beforehand. And then, speaking of those raid battles, they mentioned that you'll be more likely to encounter Gigantamax Pokemon, like Gigantamax Butterfree, over the next 2 months when the game comes out. And if you're in Sword, you're more likely to get a different Pokemon versus Shield, which I think is Corviknight. And so now they're making Pokemon into a very light service game, right? Where, different months might be different Pokemon that will be available to be the raid bosses, essentially, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm happy about?
What's that?
That they're focusing on all of these quality of life issues instead of adding all the Pokemon.
Well, we were going to get to that. We could get to that.
Or just try to start some shit.
Because that is, before we get to that, though, I do want to briefly mention, right? Because this is stuff that's very much is focused on the competitive scene, right?
Yeah.
And competitive Pokemon has always sort of, for a series that has been very about being accessible to everyone of all ages, has had a super high barrier of entry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so do you think...
If you're new to it, you basically have to, like, look it up, like, online.
Yeah.
You have to, like, read a guide and understand how it works and how to do it. And it's not super easy to even understand, even if you read about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is good stuff.
Yeah. It's because it's such a shit game.
Well,
okay, bitch.
But it is worth mentioning. I just want to ask that question then. I do know that some people, maybe because of just having done it before, view this stuff as like making it too casual, right? That they liked the breeding and all the other things you have to do to make a competitive Pokemon.
Those people have no fucking lives, first of all.
Okay. All right. I was going to ask how your vibe was on it. Clearly, we have a vibe.
Dude,
the people.
I think they're the salt of the earth. I think they're right, man.
Those people that try to gatekeep and be like, no, you guys don't know how it was. I used to have to breed Pokemon, uphill both ways. In the snow, barefoot, it's like, fuck those people.
I knew how it was, and it was awful. Like,
it sucked. I used to do it too. It was awful. Yeah. I don't feel bad I'm glad people can be more accessible. Guess what? Now there's going to be more people who can do it, more competition, and you can get better by having more people, challenge you. Like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't even have half the Pokemon in the game. Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to these people who are
No,
mad.
I mean everybody, all the fans. Like half the Pokemon are not in the game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more than half.
Well,
there you go.
And let's get to that. So we're not going to talk. So the game is out for people that have gotten it through leaked means, right? We're not going to talk about any of the new Pokemon, none of the story stuff. We don't want to do that. So don't worry about
Not
that.
until after the game's out.
Not until after the game's out. But we do know, as a follow-up to a big news headline of the summer coming out at E3 for Nintendo, there was the Dexit controversy, which was the fact of the lack of a national Dex. We now know the exact number of Pokemon in the game without revealing the number of new Pokemon, because I think that is a spoiler for some people. 400 Pokemon in total. Okay, for the game. Now, I think the point of comparison at first glance would be to the regional Dex of previous games.
Yeah.
So if you know what that means, essentially, the regional Dex is the Pokemon you can catch within the campaign of the game itself, right? Within the region that you're in.
Yeah.
And this is the second highest. X and Y had, I think, 30 more, and Sun and Moon had a little bit less. So this is number 2, pretty squarely in the middle of those. And the thing that would then happen after that regional Dex is typically in the 3DS era. A couple months later, you would get support for Pokemon Bank added to the game, and you could bring in all the Pokemon then, right? Yeah. And essentially that part will not happen. The way it is in the game, as we've discussed before, right? So I think two of the big headlines, and I these are maybe spoilers, but I think that they're worth knowing beforehand. There is no starters besides Charizard from older
garbage. Throw this game away.
And there are no legendaries besides the legendaries that are in the game, and Mew, which mythicals they don't count for Pokedex completion, so it's a little different. But that to me is, I think, super. I mean, I was surprised genuinely with the fact that there were no starters more than anything else, right?
Right.
Because
okay, well, you can be mad about it. Just let it out.
No, I wouldn't say I'm mad. But what I would say is, I think that there were concerns that it would be a popularity contest, right? And so say what you will about all this stuff, it's certainly not a popularity contest because there are some big boys that are missing. But I think it is interesting to sort of, I mean, the potential upsides versus downsides, right? We've discussed that plenty. But I think the interesting thing will be what happens down the line. Because they said that their plan is Pokemon that are not in this game will be showing up in later games. The Pokemon that are in this game may not be in later games as soon, right?
Yeah.
And so essentially, I get the idea that you don't want to blow all your big boys at once, right? Maybe you have other ones for other ones down the line, or just ones that fit the regions better, right? Because if you have Pokemon that already are of a certain type or whatever, you don't want to have ones that are repeats, right? If you have a new Golem equivalent, don't put in Geodude. Right. But I think it is interesting, sort of. I guess the question I would pose is, when you think about the way that you're playing this game, looking at this list, how much do you think, now that we have the numbers in front of us, do you think it's going to impact your enjoyment, right? Because we were talking in hypotheticals up to this point.
Right.
So how do you feel about it?
I mean, it's going to be
good,
fine.
man.
No, it's going to be fine. like, it's gonna be all right. Like, I never really play more than the base characters that I actually get throughout the first campaign. Like, I never go out looking for like 100% Pokemon. I just like, oh, this is a cool Pokemon. Grab that, use him, play him, and then just complete the game. And then I can collect the stuff later. So I don't think it's gonna affect me that much at all. Like, it's gonna. Be
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, yeah, of course. Am I disappointed that there's Pokemon that I really like that aren't going to be in the game? Yeah, of course. You know, and there's nothing wrong with being disappointed, but I also don't think that disappointment is going to affect my enjoyment of this game.
Sure.
You know, it's not such a disappointing thing that I'm going to let it ruin my, you know, the rest of everything else. You know, everything else is just way too exciting to let that ruin it. And you know, it's I think more than anything, yeah, it's a little disappointing to think in the future. And, you know, there's always going to be, this Pokemon might not ever be able to battle this Pokemon again. You know, what if they never get matched up? You know, and that's something that disappoints me. And hopefully someday down the line that we'll have them all back, you know? Never say never. You know, it's not impossible. And, or maybe, and you know, this is just throw an idea out there. Maybe we'll get like a Pokemon Stadium type of game that's just like dedicated to every Pokemon can be in this. This thing is just for battling. It's not an adventure game. You know, there's no pressure on having to catch them all. If you have them, you can bring them to this game and you can battle them, and it's just for competitive battles. Like, I think that would be super cool. And it would really hit the spot for people like me. Because, you know, when it comes down to it, you know, the games, if you think of just the adventure, you know, every time I play a new Pokemon game, even if there's old Pokemon in it, I do not catch them. I only will play through the main story of the game with brand new Pokemon every time. And I know not everybody does that, but that's just how I do it. And yeah, that's what I'm going to do again, you know? So I don't, it's not going to affect me. But I understand that people are upset, but I think they kind of blow it out of proportion. And they need to relax because the game is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, but
so go ahead.
Seriously, why isn't there a Pokemon Bank this time around? And what the fuck?
We got the equivalent. We have Pokemon Home.
Because I was going to ask, as I was going to say, sort of when it comes to that. So because the thing is, like with Pokemon Bank and with, like I said, you know, those almost always were launched in like January or February, right? When you would get the actual support.
A few months later.
So Pokemon Home is supposed to be early 2020s, so probably a similar time, right? And they said that Home will have more gameplay components. We obviously very vague on what that is. Will it be petting a Pokemon? Will it be a battle simulator? We don't know, right?
Yeah.
So there is going to be a place to put all your Pokemon. They're not going to disappear forever, right? But they won't be able to be used in a mainline game until they're in that region's decks, which is, I think, where people obviously can get frustrated, right?
Yeah,
like you sort of said, Brandon, I think for me, a thing that would be really neat, honestly, and I don't know if I expect it, but it would be a thing that's nice to hope for, is if Home has some battle element to it, right? A battle simulator, sort of like Pokemon Showdown or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But,
that'd be dope.
But then these own games get to have their own sort of metas defined by the Pokemon that are in them, right? Because a lot of, I mean, just looking at the cuts, a lot of the Pokemon that are considered to be the best competitively aren't around now, right? Suddenly there's going to be a lot of relearning and sort of seeing, oh, let me try this, let me try that, you know, this thing is
exciting to me.
Now. Yeah. And so I think,
that should be exciting to people who are, you know, really into competitive battling. I think, you know, it's kind of like a card game, right? Like you have games like obviously the Pokemon trading card game is one, but Magic the Gathering, right? And you're not looking at Yu-Gi-Oh here because they don't have any boundaries. But you know, these popular card games, they cut you off at a certain set, right? They say these are what's legal, and that's it, and competitive. And people are constantly having to, you know, restructure what their strategies are. And I think, you know, I like that. You know, it keeps you. You can't just keep relying on the same ones, and it just gives you more experimentation and more brings more to the game, I think. And it's, to me, that's a lot of fun. And, you know, I don't know if it is to everybody else, but if you're not, well, go fuck yourself.
Damn.
Yeah. I mean, well, I don't know if he has the thing I want to say that, but sort of, I mean, I get, obviously, the frustration. I've said that a million times before, but I want to reiterate it again, right?
Yeah, I get it.
But I do think, and maybe it's because I haven't looked at the leaks, right? That there's things that I'm still very interested in, you know? And so I think that, obviously I can't speak to everyone's experiences, and if you don't want to buy it, it's okay, you don't have to buy it. But
Go fuck yourself.
I'm not going to.
Nah.
Yeah, go fuck yourself, huh?
Did it.
Bring back my fucking national dex, bitch.
Eat my ass.
No.
You would, bitch, you wouldn't even
How is that a
give a
compromise?
shit.
I don't give a shit.
Well, yeah, you exactly. Shut the hell up.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta be the thing that stirs the pot. I understand. But yeah, so that is I mean, next time we're going to be recording this podcast, we're going to be hours away from that game being out, so you will definitely be free soon, Ills. Don't worry.
Oh man, the excitement's gonna be through the fucking roof, dog.
Yeah.
But until then, we have a couple of other pieces of news this week I want to sort of talk about. One, we had a follow-up to sort of a continuing story ever since Big Shawnee Layden left PlayStation. We've seen a lot of movement going on internally, and we sort of got another one this week, which is that the former head, of Sony Worldwide Studios was Jim Ryan, who's now the head of PlayStation. He's been replaced by, let me look up his name really fast, a guy from Guerrilla, Herman Hulst. There we go, found it.
Hey.
Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Herman Hulst, excuse me, who this continues the Euro takeover, okay? I don't trust them over there across the pond. They scare me.
I mean, that's completely legitimate.
But also is Shuhei Yoshida, who is among the more well-known Sony executives that has been around in the PS4 generation, is now heading up indie developer relations, which is a pretty big deal. Shuhei Yoshida is the guy that's well-known sort of both in like the public and the press, as well as among game developers themselves, is a stand-up guy who everyone sort of likes. And so I think them putting him in charge of indie relations does bode well, right? We've critiqued Sony for their sort of lack of PlayStation support over the generation, but putting a guy like him there, I think, indicates obviously that they understand heading into the next generation, and with PlayStation Now, that you need these guys to help sort of be the backbone of a lot of the stuff that you want to put out there.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely a good sign. I'm surprised they even have a indie relations thing the way they were acting the last couple of years.
Well, it's very funny that you mentioned that, because he does mention Jim Ryan did an interview with GameIndustry.biz about indie relations, and they sort of asked him like, hey, it feels like you sort of have backed off, and he goes, we haven't backed off. If you look, we put the same amount of time and money into these people. It's just we're doing it in VR because a lot of indie people move to VR. And you're like, I mean, I don't know if I fully buy that they went there and you just followed them, or if you sort of led them to the water, you know?
Yeah, there's definitely some mixing around with words there.
Yeah. But I think it is interesting. We're almost certain, right, that PlayStation will continue to sort of try to push VR into the next gen. And so I will wonder if they will try to strike more of a balance, right? Because, I mean, sort of, if you look at their old conferences from this generation and the current ones, they just replace the indie montage with the VR montage, right? And a lot of times it's the same people making making different games, right? And so I think it'll be interesting going forward. But, that's executive talk. We're not, it's the stuff that's like, it's your meat and it's your vegetables, right? You have the cupcake later, which is whatever, Pokemon, I guess, but
no.
Until then. Besides that, another thing that we have discussed in recent weeks, we have more quarterly earnings reports. Now, before you try to contain yourselves in excitement, boys.
God, so dry. I feel like I'm in the desert right now.
We have Capcom, right? And I want to ask you something, right? Okay. So, Capcom has a platinum page, which are games that have sold over 1 million copies. All right. There is 1, 2, 3, 4 new games on here. I'm only going to ask you about one, really, which is a game that came out over a decade ago that just now passed 1 million units sold from Capcom. Do you have any idea what it could be?
Over a decade ago?
Came out over a decade ago. Has had many versions since. Many shots at the bat to get to the million.
One.
No, it's not Devil May Cry. Can't
Shut
do
up.
that.
DMC, Devil May Cry.
Another, not unfair guesses, but no. I will give you another hint. This game is on the list.
Devil May Cry 2.
Another good guess. It was already at 1 million, but
Oh.
I think I nailed it. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Oh, man. Now, what platform did this game came out?
originally on the PlayStation 2.
Would it be Okami?
No.
Okami has finally passed 1 million copies
Oh
sold.
shit!
Oh, man. God bless it.
After
God
a
bless it.
PS2, Wii, PS3, PS4, and now Switch version, that baby crossed the milestone.
Woo!
It was on Xbox, too.
It was on Xbox. I apologize to Phil Spencer.
Should have been Okami then.
I don't.
You know what? I'm happy for it. Deserves it. Good ass game.
It's earned it.
Yay.
Besides that, a few other things of note. Monster Hunter World is officially the best-selling Capcom game of all time. It just passed RE5. Congrats to them. If you count Iceborne, they're at 16.9 million, which is a pretty nice number. But besides that, I thought this was interesting. The DuckTales Remastered gained 200,000 copies in that quarter. Do you remember why?
Oh, yeah, because they were going to pull it off the fucking digital shop.
Because it was delisted.
I thought it was because it was a Game Club episode.
I would say it's both. I would say give 100,000 of it to the delisting, 100,000 of it to the Game Club.
Yeah, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
That's
I'll
true.
believe it.
You're welcome, Capcom.
It's true. No problem. We'll do you the solid. Besides that, Devil May Cry 5 is probably going to end up being the best-selling Devil May Cry game. So, pretty cool.
Oh, shit. Nice. That means we're getting Devil May Cry 6 now.
Oh, baby.
Wow.
Oh
There
damn!
was no way that wasn't going to happen already.
Well, now they got more incentive.
All right. Now, let's play another guessing game.
Oh.
Okay. Grand
We're
Theft
really
Auto
light on
5.
news this week, huh?
Yeah. Grand Theft Auto 5 and Grand Theft Auto Online had their biggest quarter ever this last go-round because
Wow.
God is dead. How many copies do you think Grand Theft Auto 5 is at as of this month?
50 million.
Too many.
$1 billion?
100
What?
trillion dollars. I don't know.
Talking about copies, I'll just tell you the number. 115 million people have bought Grand Theft Auto
Too
5.
low, bitch.
Lordy. Lord.
They refuse to stop.
Where's that game sitting?
I think that game is... It probably will pass Tetris soon.
Oh, no, not another one.
Tetris has been a rough year for it.
Somebody
Yeah,
protect
man.
Tetris.
Pour one out for Tetris.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
man.
Also on Take-Two's thing, Borderlands 3, 7 million copies sold in the last month and a half.
There you go.
Pretty
That's
wild.
Damn.
Very fast. And this is unrelated, but one final little piece of news before we move on from it. That is our good friends at IO? I want to say IO. Are making a Hitman 3. They just casually sort of announced, yeah, we're working on it. We're decently far in, but we're not like
Wow.
super far in.
We're talking about that episodic Hitman series, right?
Well, that was the first one, right? That one came out.
Oh,
That was when they were still owned by Square Enix. The rights to Hitman was, and they were also under
Okay.
Square Enix. They separated from Square Enix. They bought the rights to Hitman, and then they released Hitman 2 last year, right? And it was all just one package. It was not episodic at that point. And the thing that is surprising about this is that Hitman 2, sort of from all metrics, looked like it did not do well. Like they didn't make money back on it. They got Sean Bean to be in the game and a few other people, which was pretty weird.
He probably
But
died.
apparently it did good enough for them to make it 3, baby. And I just want to say, if you're a fan of Hitman, you did it. Because I was not expecting this. The reason I was here is because I thought that the Hitman might be dead for a while. But it's not. And that's cool, because that game is actually very fun. You know what game? They do cool holiday events in Hitman, which you would not expect from them, but it's neat. You get to kill
Nice.
people in a Santa outfit.
Oh, damn.
It's the dream.
The dream. What else would you want in a video game? And then one final sort of topic I want to get to, right? So we've had when you hear this, there will have been 2 recent games that were big, sort of either the creator or the people behind them making the next big thing after their previous successes, right? So the Outer Worlds, right, a team by Obsidian, we mentioned this already, very much in the style of Fallout, sort of came out, got good reviews, according to this 2K thing, did more than they expected it to do, right? Who helped publish it. And now Death Stranding is now out when you're listening to this, right? Hideo Kojima's big follow-up after 5 Metal Gear games, where after each one he said, "This is my last one," is finally out, right? And who knows sort of how that game will be perceived by the wider audience, how it'll sell. We don't know that at this point. But I do think it's interesting to talk about how we have had, more so than a lot in this generation, creators sort of trying to claim their own thing back, right? But without having the rights, right?
Yeah.
Iga just releases Bloodstained a couple months ago, right? A lot of the flourishing of Kickstarter was about that, right? And so I sort of want to say, where do you think a success and what separates a success and a failure when it comes to being a guy that says, hey, we made Fallout New Vegas, we're going to make Outer Worlds, right? Versus, hey, I'm Keiji Inafune, I made Mega Man, now I'm making Mighty Number 9.
Well, I think in that specific example, I think he overpromised, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a huge part of it. And then the art style didn't turn out very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I played that game recently, and it wasn't as bad as people seem to think it is.
Sure.
But other than that, I mean, I feel like it's, staying faithful to what people actually want in that genre that you're famous for.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a very hard calculus. It's just like sometimes people get distracted by other things that don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's my take about it.
No, I think you touch on two super smart things there, which is one, not overpromising, right? I'm going to use Outer Worlds to sort of talk about both those things. They every time they were in an interview said, "This is not an open world game. Please don't think it's an open world game. For God's sakes, don't yell at us when it's not bits." But what they did do is they said, what are the things that people like about Fallout New Vegas? Was it the open world? Maybe, but it was sort of the like choice interacting element, and it was the role playing part of it, and that is the thing that is still in Outer Worlds.
Yeah,
and that is, I think, like you said, drilling down to not just like, oh, we made a 3D platformer, right? We made Banjo-Kazooie. What was it about Banjo-Kazooie, right? And I think that, like, Platonic, once again, like, I played ukulele, didn't dislike it as much as some people do, but certainly they have that new game that just came out, right? The Impossible Lair, that had a much better reception, right? Because I think they sort of drilled down into what people liked about the Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3, right? And so I think that it's very interesting to sort of have. Also, I love their honesty in that game, where they're like, "This game's going much better than the last one," which I thought was a very funny, rare type of joke to make, But yeah, I think it's interesting because obviously with next gen looming, we're going to see a bunch of reboots and reimaginings and everything else, and so I think it'll be, thinking about that stuff when you look at these new games, right? Whether or not it's Kickstarter or wherever else, it's important.
Well, Kickstarter has kind of died off, hasn't it?
It has, right? Yeah.
So I don't think we're going to have this phenomenon again.
Sure. I mean,
I don't know how it's going to manifest in the next generation, but I hope there's some avenue for creators to get the funding that they need.
Yes.
Some of those games are actually good, like Bloodstained.
Yep. Yeah. There's been good games to come out of Kickstarter. I've backed 2 games, Shantae Half Genie Hero and Bloodstained, and I was not disappointed by either one. So
nice. Yeah. So
I remember backing Hex Heroes, and that's not even out yet. But that's last talk.
That is the other risk you run, is that they're not bad, they just don't exist.
Yeah.
What other was Indivisible a Kickstarter game?
Yeah.
Indivisible had like 3 different Kickstarters to get the amount that they needed.
Well, I hear that's a good game too.
And then, I mean, a big one, right? It was on an E3 stage. Shenmue 3 is coming out in like 2 weeks, right?
My God.
And that is...
Oh, shit. Time to play Shenmue 1 and 2 real quick.
Yeah.
They're on Game Pass. Hey-o.
I know.
But see, that, and I think that Shenmue 3 is so funny to me because it is... You look at that game and you're like, they're not interested in picking up a single new player. They are only for the people that are already into Shenmue, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But, I mean, it's good for the people that were into Shenmue to get this, after waiting for so long.
But isn't that why you would back these developers in the first place? Because, like, you want the product that they're famous for. That's why you're doing it. So
and so yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think in a weird way, Shenmue 3 doesn't have to pick up anyone new. Because it's already sort
Yeah,
of...
Shenmue 3 is going to sell all the copies it's going to sell real early on,
Mhm.
and then after that it's going to die out. It's kind of like JRPGs, right? Like
Yeah.
really hardcore ones.
Mhm.
They'll sell real good at first, but it's just all the people who want it will buy it right away, and then after that, nobody's buying it anymore.
Yeah. But by the way, so while that is like 2 weeks away, pretty crazy. But that is generally the news. That is a thing I wanted to talk about. Thank you for engaging me on it. But now, of course, we have to do something else, something that is invaluable but encourageable. The list.
The list.
Follow along in the paste bin below. Right, every week we add a game to an ever-growing list of 143 right now. Video games. We rank them. 44. Is it 144? Has my thing not updated? I guess. But either way, you can follow along the paste bin to see that number. And there's good, there's bad, there's ugly, I guess, as well in some instances. But we keep doing it because it is we will die if we don't.
yeah.
Last week I added...
My list is also 143, by the way.
Yeah, it's fine. I was
Okay. Then we have, let's take a look. Last week I added Rock Band to the list. Do you guys remember where it ended up?
45.
45. Pretty good. This week, Saf, you are bringing something to the table.
I'm bringing Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Well, here we are.
This conversation.
So, Saf, you were wrong earlier. I did play this game, but I only played it for like a couple hours. So, Yeah,
I mean,
that's it.
you've kind of... I mean, I guess that counts then. But you've kind of barely scratched the surface.
I won't weigh in as much, obviously, as the rest of you guys.
Mhm.
So
Fair enough. Where do I begin with this? Sequel to Xenoblade Chronicles X. They focus
Sort
more
of.
on the overworld and making sure it's as big as possible and has as much to do as possible. And they focus less on story as a result of it. There was a lot more side quests to do, and there was a lot more interesting side quests to do rather than actually a decent story. They also tried to implement different elements. They tried to implement giant robot fights. They tried to implement giant monsters as well as human-sized ones. And they tried to do incorporate like different aliens and species and make this more sci-fi focused than Xenoblade Chronicles.
Mm-hmm.
This game was
and also,
also
there's like a creator character, and you choose the classes that you fight as.
yeah, it's a lot more customization.
There's online like faction stuff, which is pretty wild.
Kind of light online action stuff, yeah.
Yeah. But this is it's funny you call it a sequel, because do they officially call it a sequel to Xenoblade Chronicles?
Successor or something like that.
Yeah,
Something like that, yeah.
Because it's funny because there is X and then 2 after it, right? Like this is now positioned as this sort of side thing to Xenoblade Chronicles.
Very JRPG naming structure.
Yes. But this is a super interesting game because, like you said, there is story obviously in the game. It is light, like you said, but it is so much about exploring the world. That is where it feels like so much of the attention went, and sort of everything else sort of fell to the wayside. Not in like a disastrous type of way, but in a way that you can very much see. If exploring the world of Xenoblade Chronicles was your favorite thing in that game, you will love Xenoblade Chronicles X, right?
100%, yeah.
But
I think they did it better than the first game.
Okay, that's interesting. Do you think the thing that I think is maybe my biggest critique about it is that it is maybe too big of an open world? Especially,
it very much feels like a single player MMO. Like
yes,
it's just like there's a massive amount of shit to do in this game. There's so many things to collect. There's so many quests to do. There's so many people to meet. There's so many places to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's insane how much they packed into this game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so big that it barely fit into the actual disc itself. Like you had to install parts of the game so it can run smoothly.
That is the
Crazy.
funniest thing in the world, dude. Wasn't it like literally to get all of it, you had to have a bigger hard drive than what came with the Wii U?
Yeah, I think it was like 22 gigs of free space. I think that's
Yeah.
how much you needed. It was crazy.
And there was 32 total gigs, so like if you download any other games, you're basically screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like this is a game that I think is super interesting. I see why it got a lot of critique when it first came out, right? Especially because this is the first follow up to this game that was sort of a lot of people's first Xeno game, which was the first one, and there, I think story in an RPG matters a lot, right? Having characters that sort of drive you matters a lot, and Xenoblade Chronicles 1 excelled in all those ways. And like Saf, I know you very much love Elma and want her to be in Smash Brothers, but I would say overall the characterization is lacking.
Well, no, I say the characters are actually pretty good, but there's like, I wouldn't say there are as many meaningful ones. Like Lin is good, Elma is good, Tatsu's good, but he's not playable. And then there's a bunch of like random people you can recruit throughout the city that don't really feel like your party members. They just kind of feel like, extra people you could recruit for a little bit of time. So it's kind of odd. But they all get like a side story, like a side quest to fill out their narrative or whatever. But then again, they're not. They never really feel like incorporated into anything of the story. It's usually just Lin, Elma, and you.
Pretty much, yeah.
And Tatsu.
I mean, there are a couple of cool designed characters, but they're like the aliens. I can't remember what the aliens were, but there was like the blue merchant traveler dude, and like I think it was Celica was the other one, or Celicia or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think I got her.
Yeah, she's like the girl with the giant ass alien fucking dude that.
I got her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
she's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a couple of good ones, but it's like a lot of them is just kind of like throwaway characters. Like you see, like you can collect them if you want to, but you're not going to use them too much, or you're not committed to them at all. There's nothing interesting about them.
And you have to build them up. They all start at like super low levels, so.
Oh yeah.
And grinding in the game is not very fun. I'll tell you that right now.
I did like. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I was going to move on to like the battles and like the mechanics of this game. So, but if you want to say something,
I was sort of tying into that. It's a long game, right? As JRPGs seem to be, but I think the thing that I actually did like is how much they are willing to sort of hold back on the Skell, which is the big mech that you're in the game, right? When you first start the game, because when you do get it, like that night where I got it and I was flying around, I was like, this is, yeah, dude, yes, like this is, I love this. And I like all the stuff, most of the stuff that surrounds the Skell, but like you sort of said about the MMO stuff, right? Because it is sort of like you said, Saf, transitioning to the battles. There's even less direction to sort of where to go, right? So there's just a lot of wanderlust, but I don't know if it could have used a little bit more sort of like, okay, this is like where to go.
Oh yeah, I mean, that whole fucking story could have used a whole restructuring. I mean, I think they made a mistake making it a creative character. But even with that, like, the story's essentially half a story. Because when you get to the end and the twist at the end, it essentially makes the whole game pointless.
But personally, the creative character, like, I wouldn't mind a creative character as long as they just add some sort of fucking character to that character, like some sort of personality. Yeah. Like, that's the missing element to it. I don't know why a lot of RPGs that have a creative character just decide you need to be a blank slate. That's it.
Like,
and also, like, I don't think her role before, being found is ever, talked about. I don't know. Because, like I said, there are like a million side quests. And a lot of them are actually meaningful, so I do like that part of the game.
Yeah. That was a nice element to that game as well. I was about to say, is like the mechanics, the battle mechanics, they are a lot more complex than they were in the first game. Like, they seem to be like a lot more hardcore oriented.
Yes, and kind of, I mean, yes, it is a little bit more complex, with the soul voices and all that stuff. And I thought that was pretty good. I thought it was a good improvement. But the thing I didn't like was that you couldn't control your other characters, and that was just a pain in the ass to me. Like in the other game, I could choose which character I wanted to play as. Like I didn't have to be Shulk all the time. It could be Dunban or Ryan or whatever, or Fiora. But I mean, this game I'm only playing as the created character, and it's a pain in my ass. I don't like it, and it's really, really, really hard to control. Like when your other characters are going to react in the way you need them to. Like if you need them to heal you, it's almost never going to happen when you need it.
Yeah. That in particular is always the thing that kills me in games like this when you have AI control party members is the heal aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
When it's just like,
it's pivotal. And like the game gives you no items, so I mean, you can get items, but you have to do like an online thing to get them. Yeah,
the game has no healer. There's no class dedicated to healing at all. So you just kind of like go through that. I think it was like this is what you said, the soul voice command. Like you'd have to rely mostly on that for healing.
Yeah, I mean, you can get a healing command, but then you have to be the dedicated healer.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, so I mean, like, I would describe it as, like, ultimately, I enjoyed it. I think it's a cool game, right? But obviously, I think it has warts to it, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot to like. I mean, the world is massive. It's gorgeous. Like, it's extremely impressive for what a Wii U can do. Especially how seamless you can travel from place to place in your Scout. Once you get that flying Scout, it feels amazing.
Yeah.
I just loved getting lost in that world. Like, it was just so fun to explore for me. Like, I didn't care if I had a mission. A lot of the times I would have a mission, I would go somewhere else, but I would just love to just travel to this unknown cave that I didn't notice when I fucking first flew by there, and then just find out what the fuck's going on there.
I kind of wish they leaned into that more, where like they made more things that you could actually find in these caves, because a lot of the times they were just like there for a side quest or something. They weren't like there wasn't like a cave you explore and suddenly you find something completely new, unrelated to everything else, which is I think a missed opportunity.
And you mentioned as well, like some of the side quests were meaningful, and there were like quite a few ones that actually stick into my mind. Like there was a side quest early on where it's like there were baby I can't remember what there was, like baby pigs that were like hiding underneath a cave, and you had to choose to either kill it or show mercy. I chose to show mercy, and then later on in the game what happened was, like, because I showed mercy, they grew up into a hostile creature and killed the guy who gave me the mission. I was like, oh shit. I fucked up, but I had to live with that consequence. But I love that like element of like, well, this is meaningful. This is going to have some direct consequence or some change to it, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt like I had the feeling when I was playing this game that it felt sort of like Mass Effect almost. Like there's these side quests and the whole world is so alien to you. It was like, I don't know. I just had that feeling, even though games are not very comparable.
Yeah.
So, and I do also like I do want to say, like, managing your Scout is a pain in the fucking ass. Like the fact that your Scout can get destroyed almost like super easily if you fly into the wrong creature or fly near the wrong creature, and then you have to spend an insurance or basically buy the whole Scout all over again, and they're super fucking expensive. It's really, really stupid, and I hate that aspect of the game.
Yeah. Like when I said almost all the stuff with the skull, I corrected myself. I remembered that when I was talking about it earlier. I was like,
I completely forgot about that part. I want to say the UI is pretty shit as well. That's fucking not great.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's when you first get like you very much get overwhelmed at the beginning of the game. I would say, right? Like there's just the beginning
is terrible. I hate the beginning of the game. It's so slow.
Oh dear.
But and I think I think we would be remiss to not mention the soundtrack, which is
wild. Soundtrack.
Awful. Holy shit,
wild. I don't want to describe it as good or bad. It's just like it is a soundtrack that is not a lot like it.
I can't believe it happened.
Yeah, Black Tar. When you first hear Black Tar, you're like, whoa, what?
Yeah,
I need a bigger gun. But yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have any other final thoughts?
This game has a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And like I was saying with the ending, it's very bad. Like, they have a post-credit scene that basically nullifies your whole quest. Like, it's pointless. Yeah. Like, if they just cut out that post-credit scene, the ending would have been fine. It would have been satisfying, good enough. But they had to add it for some reason.
They had to add this fucking stinger. And
half the fucking game it was like removed because you need an explanation to that and you're never going to get one.
No, you're not. It drives me insane. Like, it's why I want like, I always say, it's like, this game doesn't deserve a sequel, but I deserve a sequel just to find out what the fuck is going to happen. It's just so fucking stupid.
Oh boy. So Saf, after all that, where would you like to put it on the list?
I want to put this. I mean, it's a. I was going to joke about putting it somewhere near Xenoblade Chronicles, but no.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Okay, boomer.
I want to put this. Where did we put? Fuck. Where did we put? Because this is a game that's a great game, but it has flaws. So I want to put it in the area where other games are like that.
That's like in the hundreds, basically.
No, like I would
90,
say, I would
80
kind
to
of,
100.
I would count Wonderful 101 as one of those games that have kind of flaws in it.
No, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So somewhere around that area, I guess.
I don't think I would. I don't know if I would put it above Pandora's Tower.
That's what I was gonna say too. I think, yeah. Because Pandora's Tower has like the sort of like this one thing that I really like about it, right? And Xenoblade X is a sort of similar thing, but Pandora's Tower I think is more unique and like, you know, there are other open worlds that I like more than Xenoblade X's, right?
Yeah.
Fair enough, yeah. I didn't
know.
even notice Pandora's Tower. I was going from up to down. But yeah, no, that's 100%. Like, yeah, no, I can agree with that. Yeah, that seems reasonable. Like Pandora's Tower is definitely a better game. Let's put it at 78. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really fast? Do we want to put below Goemon, or how do you feel about that, Ills?
Nah,
I think it does enough to go above.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm good with that. There it is, folks. Xenoblade Chronicles X. I always think in my brain the ratio of talking about the game to ranking the game. That might be among the one of the most lopsided ones we've ever done.
There's a lot to say about this game.
There is.
I didn't even get like halfway through, basically.
But there it is. That is number 78 on the list. Xenoblade Chronicles X. Surrounding it, 76. Drill Dozer, 77. Pandora's Tower, 79. Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, and 80. Apotheon. You want to know a fact about all the games surrounding it? They're all Game Club games, baby. How about that? This is where it lives. There's just a chunk that it's now right in the middle of. There was 5 Game Club games, and now there's just Xenoblade Chronicles right in the middle of it. But
should have put it in the club.
Should have. God, could you imagine? But anyways, that is the podcast for this week. Saf, when's the last time you got a final phrase? No, Brandon didn't get to say anything. Brandon, you get the final phrase.
Well, thanks.
I was about to start singing the lyrics to Black Tower.
Oh, fuck. Good. I'm glad you changed your mind.
But while you think of a final phrase, Brandon, let me do some quick plugs. If you enjoy this podcast, made it this far, we would appreciate very much if you rated us 5 stars on iTunes, the podcast service of choice that you are listening to us on. Subscribing on there also as well. Make sure you don't miss it as well. Another way to back up and make sure that when it goes live, you see it every Monday, is by following us on Twitter at twitter.com/jumpupsupercast or facebook.com/jumpupsupercast, or subscribing to us on YouTube, where a couple days later normally we upload the podcast. Every other Thursday we do the Jump Up Supercast Game Club, which that'll be this week, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
That'll be Hotel Dusk, a DS adventure visual novel type game, because Ills just can't escape.
No. Brandon is the Dark Prince of adventure games.
Oh, baby, I picked 2 in a row,
That's
Snatcher and now this. But I'll tell you.
Hey, man.
Good choice.
I like them.
You can pick 2 worse ones. But until then, so make sure to catch that when that goes live. And of course, Brandon, if you would give us your final phrase.
Sure, why not? You know what's coming up soon, guys, and Will failed to mention it, is that I'm going to see you, Will, and I'm going to see you, Ills, and I'm going to see you, Saf, and hell, I'm even going to see Muzzy and Noah at Ranker Series, baby! And we're going to fight, and we're going to argue, and we're going to re-rank games on the goddamn list, and it's going to be a great time. Catch us when we do it. I think right now we're looking at around, like, November, 17th? Possibly.
Something like that.
So we'll be streaming probably on, like, Twitch, maybe Mixer. we'll let you know. I'll tweet about it. Look forward to it. Last time we did Ranker Slam, and we played Mario Kart, and I won, by the way, in Mario Kart. I just want to point that out.
Congratulations.
You can watch that on YouTube, and we'll upload whatever we do, whatever we play. We'll let you know what we're playing soon, and we'll upload it on YouTube. So if you miss it, it'll be there. But try to tune in, man. Be there live for what happens. It's gonna be a fun time. We're all here to kick some ass, take some names, and rank some games.
We're all out of